Hi everyone, welcome to the RhinoMight Podcast. My name is Ashim and I'm with Dr. Kanishk.
Hi everyone.
And this is episode 6 of the RhinoMight Podcast. Today's topic is how to calculate your TRT dose. Now, we've seen clinically, in our clinical experience, we've seen that there are people who are hyper responders as well as slow responders. The general guidelines for TRT doses is anywhere from 75 mg per week to 300 mg per week. And we've seen people who fall well within this general guidelines, as well as people who are outliers, people who respond beautifully with just 50 mg a week, which is nothing, and guys for whom 300 mg is too less. So when you're going to go about selecting your TRT dose, there's going to be a brief period in the beginning. You can call it a transitioning period, where you're going to have to feel your way through, and we're going to give you a list of guidelines on how to or how to know clinically whether or not you're falling into the right TRT dose spectrum. Now, with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Kanishk to go over what are the different frequencies at which you can inject yourself or administer TRT. Let's actually talk about the different formats of TRT that we have, where we have got gels, etc.
So there are various forms of testosterone. Testosterone can be taken as gels, it can be taken as injections, it can be given as patches, but those are not available to us here. But in worldwide use of testosterone, that you can use testosterone as gels, the bioavailability of testosterone as compared to injections is less. So the most preferred form of testosterone replacement therapy with the least amount of side effects and the most benefits is by injections. So some of the frequencies that are there for testosterone injections can be ranging from daily dosing to every alternate day dosing to 3 times a week, which can be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or it can be twice a week, let's say Monday and Thursday, split between 3.5 days in frequency, and it can also go for once a week. But this is for long-acting esters, which is especially testosterone enanthate.
Right, so we have the next topic, which is going to be the different compounds that you can use, the different esters. So if let's say, by and large, we're going to be discussing testosterone injections in this video. There are creams, there are compounding pharmacies in the US. We don't have this stuff available in India, so I'm not going to get into it because we're speaking from Mumbai, India. And this is about TRT in India. That's where we practice. With that being said, you have got testosterone enanthate, you got testosterone propionate, you got testosterone cypionate, and these are the three which are the least liver toxic, the least, it's actually the easiest on the liver. These are the three esters that make testosterone break down, the metabolization of testosterone, the simplest, the easiest for your liver. And of course, there are other esters that can get added to it. You have sustanon, which is a group of testosterone esters put together. You've got other customized, there are various companies that manufacture testosterone, and each one has their own like testosterone 6 esters, testosterone 8 esters, etc. So they like to bring all of that down. There is even testosterone suspension, which is no ester. It's pure testosterone that's being given to you. So there are people that sometimes inject testosterone no ester 3 times a day. So you have got to measure certain things. You got to gauge. First, you got to figure out what your dose is roughly. You got to figure out what your frequency should be. We're going to get into how to calculate your frequency in the next bit. And then you got to figure out what type of testosterone ester is available to you for you to use, and which agrees with you. Like for example, testosterone propionate is a very fast acting ester. It is in fact the least difficult on the liver because it's in and out very quickly. And like theoretically, you would think about it and say that, oh, this is actually going to be the best one to take, especially if you're going to do something like daily dosing. But the thing is that testosterone propionate has ups and downs that take place within the course of 24 hours. So if you're someone who enjoys having highs and lows, and not a lot of us fall into that category, most people would like to have testosterone in very, very, very stable blood levels in your system. So if you have testosterone that is ricocheting as up and down, you're not going to enjoy it. Some people don't enjoy it. Some people look forward to it. So it just depends on what your preferences are. And then you've got testosterone enanthate and cypionate, which are the next ones, which are the best for you and what we like to work with. But theoretically, if you're going to do daily dosing, you can play with any testosterone ester, and it's just going to keep compounding on itself and giving you more and more stable levels down the line. With that being said, we should hop into what are the types of blood tests that you should do. So these blood tests are going to determine a rough understanding of your dose as well as the frequency. You should get your total testosterone levels checked. you should get your SHBG values checked, you should get blood albumin levels, and you should get free testosterone levels checked. And if you have a total testosterone, like you will realize, like if it falls within certain ranges, if it's in the say higher ranges of 600, 800, and you still clinically feel that you need TRT, then you're not going to need a huge dose of it. At the same time, if your testosterone values are like really low, at say in the 200s or 300s, then you know that okay, if I push my TRT, my testosterone dosage to 200, 300, it's not going to be that much of a jump. In the sense, it's going to be significant jump. It's not going to be something that's way out of the reference range that we want the total testosterone to be at. SHBG is really significant because it's going to determine whether or not your body is holding on to testosterone or whether it's releasing it freely into the blood. If your SHBG value is very high or on the higher end of the spectrum or the reference range that they give you, then it means that your body is holding on to too much testosterone. In this case, taking frequent doses is not going to be the best solution for you initially. Your first phase would be to break this SHBG value down, and we want to lower it. The lower it is, it means that much free test is roaming in your body. These two are inversely proportional. If your SHBG value is high, then your free test is going to be low. If your SHBG is low, your free test is going to be high. Now, of course, this is not an absolute statement. This comes with caveats. There is another chemical called estrogen that's also associated with it. You might be one of these unfortunate people who have low SHBG and you've got low free test and you've got very high estrogen. So there are various combinations, and probably in a Q&A session we can go over each type of scenario. But the overall trend is, if your SHBG is very, very low, you can do frequent dosing. And frequent dosing is actually the way you should go, because if you take a big dose of testosterone, just assume most of it is going to go to waste. All of it will get, the bulk of it will get converted to free test. Your free test is of course not going to get consumed by your body, because it will reach supraphysiological levels in that short interim of time, and then it's either going to get converted to estrogen or just going to fizzle out, because there's no need for it. So you want daily dosing, and if you have low SHBG, you want daily dosing, or like maybe every other day dosing, and that's going to be good. If you are someone who has high SHBG, you want something like once a week or twice a week shots, but big doses going in at that time to crash your SHBG. And then of course, once your SHBG lowers over time, you can shift to daily dosing or every other day dosing. And if your SHBG is well within the reference range, even something like 3 times a week or 2 times a week, that is convenient for you and with something that you can adhere to, like a lifestyle practice, you should roll with that. Sorry, I've spoken a lot. I want to hand it over to Kanishk, because he wants to talk about albumin as well as finer aspects of SHBG that I've skipped over.
So, when you have SHBG can be raised in certain conditions if you have a lot of baggage with you. Let's say that you are somebody who's suffering from autoimmune diseases like asthma or allergies as such. Your body is in a constant state of stress, and that constant state of stress will raise the SHBG. So it may not just have to do with your testosterone levels, but the number of diseases that you're carrying forward. One of the best signs of knowing that your testosterone is working for you is when you start feeling those diseases and their effects to be completely reduced from what they are, from their baseline. Let's say that you are somebody who woke up every day sneezing. On testosterone, you should not be waking up sneezing. That means that the testosterone is working for you. Testosterone is one of the best healers in our body. It will work for you to fight diseases and illnesses that are holding you back. So, how do you know what are the good signs of an ideal TRT dose? Like, what are the signs of an ideal TRT dose? You would say that the first improvement you may notice is in mood. The second improvement may be in your libido. It may be in your exercise capacity, where workout to workouts, you will recover very easily, basically. And your mood and your mental fog, basically, let's say that you are having difficulty in performing daily tasks, you will be able to perform those tasks easily, as well as remember. A lot of the things that people say about mental fog is, you start out with a plan to achieve certain things in a day, and during the day you lose track of the plan, and you end up looking back at the day and saying that you barely achieved anything on your task list. And this thing tends to get abolished when your testosterone dose is good. I would like to hand over to Ashin to talk about how to see the bad signs of testosterone. So please, Ashin.
Yeah, so what I want to talk about, and I want to touch upon again, is that everybody's TRT journey is going to be a little different. We all fall into the same pattern of lifestyle improvement, but how it's going to impact everybody is a little different from person to person. So you have got people who, say for example, they might come in with a good libido, they might have good exercise capacity, but they've got mental fog. And for them, their TRT journey is going to involve a pivotal moment which is going to decide that, oh yeah, this is working for me, is going to be that complete eradication of mental fog. When they're really on the ball, dialed in mentally all the time, wired. So this is how it works for them. And everybody's going to be a little different. It just depends on how much baggage you're bringing into your TRT. Like Kanishk mentioned, if you've got allergies, if you've got other illnesses, you've got diseases, you've got IBS, like which is digestion issues, etc. All of these things, like think of it as testosterone is going to help you fight various battles that are going on. If you have many battles that you're coming in with, then your dose is going to also have to be adjusted for that. And then also it's going to take time for each battle to be won. And as you keep winning each battle, you're going to have qualitative improvement that's going to take place. It's up to you to be aware of it. Like one of the things that we talk about in I think almost every single one of our podcasts is that when you enter this side of lifestyle, of say even if it's low dose cycling or anabolic steroids or testosterone replacement therapy or hormone replacement therapy, you have to be hyper aware of yourself. So small changes that start, you got to be aware of it, and if it's moving in the right direction, you got to capitalize on that and be aware of it. And the second it's not moving in that direction or it's moving in the opposite direction, you got to be aware of that as well. So one of the things, like several things that are there which are clinical signs of knowing that your TRT dose is not dialed in, is when you have frequent headaches, when you have acne, you've got hair fall, you have a lot of restlessness that's taking place, you know that your dose is not good. So if your dose is very, very low, the problem is not with high doses. The problem is with, it's the opposite. If the problem is with high doses, if your dose is really low, guess what? You're going to probably still feel the same as you did before you started TRT. That's how you know that your dose isn't right. You got to increase it. So even if you start at, say, a conservative reference range of whatever value that you decide upon, if you will come to know that this is good for me or this is too low, because you're not going to feel any of the benefits of TRT. And then if you start feeling signs of like headache, acne, hair fall, restlessness, then you know that, oh, this dose is too high, I got to cut it down a little bit. You could also start developing gyno. So when you come into all of this, the bad aspects of testosterone, or rather the side effects that we don't want, and any one of them starts popping up frequently, then it's going to mean that your dose is too high, or maybe the frequency has to be adjusted, etc. So there are times, and I want to just reiterate how important frequency is. There are people who sometimes think that they need 400 mg of test because they're used to taking 200 and 200. It's basically 400 split into 2 doses twice a week. And when they shift to something like daily dosing, or maybe 3 times a week or every other day, so every other day and daily and 3 times a week is a little different, because 3 times a week means like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, where there are 3 fixed dates. Every other day means you are basically doing it 3.5 times, because in week 1 you'll be doing it, say, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday, and then week 2 is going to be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. So there is a small difference between these two, and when they shift to something like that, to a more frequent dosing, they can overall lower their dose a little bit and they get better benefits. So it's like you're injecting less stuff into you, you're injecting it more frequently, but you're getting much more out of it. So it's worth it for them. So you must keep this in mind. One of the things that we've noticed over all this time that we've been helping people, and that we've been in this based on our clinical experience, what we've noticed is the concept that people are a little unaware of as yet, which is called pilot syringes. So a lot of times when you tell someone who's used to taking heavy doses, or say a bodybuilder, or even someone who's used to buying ampules at a time, they're going to think that, oh, I'm going to be wasting it. Like if someone was to say that, hey, just take 100 mg 3 times a week, and they're going to be like, oh, but what about like in an ampule you get 250 mg. So what am I doing with the remaining 150? Am I just going to discard it? So here's where pilot syringes come in. The second you break an ampule, your first job is to take a 2 ml syringe, and that's going to be a pilot syringe. You draw out that entire 1 ml or 250 mg or 300 mg if it's in some cases from that ampule. Actually, Kanishk, why don't you dive into this more?
Let's say that you have ampules of testosterone. Each ampule is reconstituted as 250 mg per ml. You take one 2 ml syringe, you attach an 18 gauge needle to it, you break open the vial, you load the whole of the 1 ml in that 2 ml syringe. Now this 1 ml syringe is your pilot syringe. This will be used to load your injections based on your dosage. So if your dose is 100 mg, you will load one syringe with 100 mg, and the remaining 150 mg can be stored in a fridge or somewhere where there is no sunlight in the temperature between 30 to 35 degrees or room temperature, and that testosterone will last you for a month. It will not get spoiled. That way you can prevent wastage and you can keep your cost of TRT also down.
Yeah, so when you look at TRT, it's not supposed to be a pit stop in your life. It's supposed to be part of your lifestyle. It's something that's going to be a part of who you are, so to say. The way we would like to do it is you build maybe 1 or 2 pilot syringes, and then you have a kit. You have a TRT kit that is there. You've got syringes lined up for every day of the week or whatever your frequency of dosage is. Say Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You've got 3 syringes lined up, and then you pre-fill each of them. You either backload or front load depending on the thickness of the oil. With some companies you can pass it through an insulin syringe, and with some of them you can pass it through a 1 ml tuberculin syringe. So depending on what is available to you, what the thickness of your oil, the density of it, you line it up accordingly. In fact, this leads me to the last point that we want to make, which is subcutaneous versus intramuscular injections. And in the middle, for a brief period of time, everybody was really obsessed with subcut shots. But based on our clinical experience, looking at the data that we have, blood reports that have come in, etc., we can tell you that for an overwhelming, I won't say everybody because I don't want to make absolute statements, but I will say that an overwhelming majority of people do not do well on subcutaneous shots. Subcut shots always end up leading to more estrogen formation. So we don't want aromatization of testosterone to estrogen to take place. So don't do subcut. You can do intramuscular shots. If you want information on how you can do more and more intramuscular shots, and there are so many sites on the body, we suggest that you go to a website called spotinjections.com, and there are 14 sites that we have. You've got 2 sites on the glutes, you've got your pecs, you've got your delts, you've got your lats, and you've got your quads, and you've got your biceps. So you've got 7 sites on each side of your body, so that's 14 sites in total, and you can exhaust all of them. I think Kanishk will also reiterate this, and he's going to definitely emphasize this, that if you're going to get into certain dangerous sites like your biceps, triceps, etc., because theoretically you can inject into any muscle that is there. It's intramuscular. Every muscle is game for it. But you should not venture into these things without medical supervision because it can get dangerous sometimes. For example, the inside of your bicep, closer to your torso, your arm, that entire side of your arm that is closer to your torso has a lot of various nerves and veins that are passing through it, very, very critical blood vessels. So you don't want to mess around with that, nick something that you don't need to nick. So we should be very, very careful with that stuff. But yeah, overall, you can safely play within like 6 to 8 injection sites, and that way you shouldn't have an issue. Because you're not going to be injecting huge amounts of oil or testosterone into any muscle, you don't need a very, very long syringe. So if your oil is really good, then you can just take an insulin syringe and you can hit iron shots even with that. And it's going to cause the least amount of intrusion into the body, so the least amount of damage, which is going to, and it will heal. One of the other practical things that we've noticed is that whichever muscle you hit, whichever muscle that you inject into, you should probably train that muscle for like 50 to 100 reps that day. This seems contrary to what a lot of medical textbooks will say, but based on our experience, if you inject in a particular area and you train that muscle later on, I'm not saying immediately, maybe like over the course of the day, what's going to happen is you're going to dissipate all of the oil that may even have gathered in that spot. So you're going to force it to get you the local benefits that you wanted, and it does happen that way, and 2, it's also going to get dissipated into the rest of the body and broken down faster. So that's one aspect. We should also be discussing on like healthiness and cleanliness. So I'm going to hand that over to Kanishk, because Kanishk will know much more about this.
Yes. So in our clinical experience, what we see is most of the bodybuilders, like not most, but some of them like to take their shots in areas which are not clean, like in bathrooms, in locker rooms. These are the gym rats that you see taking these shots in dirty areas where there is no cleanliness. So we tell you that when you are opening a vial, you are making an injection, try to do it in clean areas, use proper precautions, use alcohol swabs to clean your skin. If you are taking a bath after the shot, that's very good. It is advisable. That heat and the hot water bath will allow the oil to be absorbed smoothly in the body, and it will not cause any blebs. If you get any blebs, make sure to clean them every single day and apply cortisol creams or betanoate or betamethasone creams on it, and make sure that those heal up as quickly as possible. At the first sign of infection, don't wait for that infection to fester and become into an abscess. make sure that it is attended by a physician, or if you have access to antibiotics which have worked for you in the past for these blebs, you start those antibiotics immediately. Do not allow these injections to cause any side effects or these kinds which can be prevented by using clean measures, sterile measures, basically.
All right. You think we should run through a wrap up and just summarize everything, because this has been a very long podcast. I think this might be the longest podcast that we've had. We've also been MIA for a while, and I'm making a light of this. Like, I know it's sense of humor is different for everybody, but generally when we drop off the radar with our podcast, you should assume that we're working very hard. It's not like we're lazy and we don't want to put out content. There is a lot of content that we should be talking about. We're still waiting. We still have a whole backlog of Q&As that we should get to. But when we're not making podcasts, you should assume that we're very busy, and we apologize for that. And when we are making podcasts, it's the opposite, that we have time and to therefore dedicate ourselves to hopefully doing a good job in conveying all this information to you.
Or we have had some cancelled appointments.
Yeah, that as well. So we have, this is the scenario, and now let's wrap up this entire podcast. So this topic of episode 6 was how to calculate your TRT dose. We went over the different the guidelines of your TRT dose, which is 75 mg to 300 mg per week. We talked about other factors that are very, very dependent on this, which is your frequency of dosing and how different frequencies can alter how you feel, which leads us to talk about the blood test that you're supposed to be doing, which is your total testosterone, SHBG, blood albumin, and free testosterone. And this should tell you roughly what your dosage frequency should be. It will also tell you what your dosage should be in terms of theoretically, because what is there in theory and what is there in practice is not always the same, and we all know that. And then we should talk about what are the signs of an ideal TRT dose, which is your good libido, good exercise capacity, where you have good recovery from your workouts as well. One of the things that Kanishka and I joke about is that when you're on TRT, you don't need pre-workouts. The second you touch the dumbbell or barbell or whatever, the second you set foot in the gym and start anything, your body's going to start responding very, very quickly. That's how also you know that your TRT dose is dialed in. Point number 3 would be mood upliftment, and the last one would be clearing of your mental fog. And then these are all the benefits of TRT dosing. Let's talk about the negatives, that you know that your dose is too high. If your dose is too high, you're going to know that you got headaches, you got acne, you got hair fall, and you got restlessness. Then if your dose is too less, you're just not going to feel any of the benefits of TRT. So you know that that's too little. You got to dial up the dose a little. Now that leads us to the next point, which was pilot syringes, and how the concept of building pilot syringes from ampules and storing them creating your own TRT kit in a sanitized and clean environment. I mean, it doesn't have to be clinically sanitized. Not everybody has that luxury, but it should be clean in general. You shouldn't be doing it in locker rooms or bathrooms where there is a lot of bacteria and infections floating around in the air.
Yeah, because of COVID and coronavirus, there is a lot of access to sanitizers everywhere. Yeah. So please use them. Make sure to clean your kits. Make sure that your syringes are kept in a clean and dry place, so that you don't risk any life-threatening infections like flesh-eating bacteria, which can happen if they are kept in dirty places.
Yeah, that's one of the...
Do not reuse needles. That is very important.
Yeah, basic hygiene parameters that sometimes we take for granted and we overlook. Well, we shouldn't. And the last point was... actually, no, I think that we covered everything. That's the whole... This is how you go around calculating your TRT dose. There are a lot of videos online about testosterone replacement therapy. There are videos on testosterone that break it down. We just wanted to play within what is practical stuff, like what we refer to as actionable intelligence, stuff that you guys can put into practice immediately. So yeah, please contact us on Instagram or YouTube, because that's where this podcast is. If you have any questions regarding testosterone replacement therapy,
please do let us know.
Yep, and thanks a lot for watching this video or listening to our podcast. We appreciate it, and we'll see you soon.